3 spine-chilling winter horrors revealed. Terrifying tales of cursed encounters on cold nights. Mary huddled in her small Maplewood living room when the phone rang, jarring the warmth of laughter that filled the space. The panic in Mrs. Henderson's voice sliced through the cozy atmosphere. "Mary, you need to keep the kids inside. There's someone out there, someone dangerous." Fear gripped Mary's heart, a cold fist squeezing tight. Shadows darted outside her frosted window, and the blinding, white snow devoured the moonlight as though hungry for terror. Ethan and Lily looked up from their board game, confusion in their eyes. The stories of the Winter Wraith loomed large in their imaginations, dark tales of families snatched away by a spirit seeking vengeance. Lily giggled at the thought, her innocence shielding her from the real horror, but Ethan's face paled. "Mom, what if it's true?" he whispered, his voice shaky. Mary pulled them close, gripping their shoulders, but her resolve began to crumble as the wind howled like a banshee outside. The old house creaked and groaned, but every sound painted a darker picture in her mind. Was it just a storm? Or was it something watching? Something waiting? She locked the doors, her breath quickening, every flicker of the lights announcing the arrival of dread. Suddenly, the air turned thick with unspoken fear. The warmth dissipated, leaving her with icy regret for even considering going outside. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With her heart pounding like a drum, terror urged her to confront the unknown. She slipped on her boots and wrapped her scarf tightly around her throat. Ethan pleaded with her to stay, but Mary brushed fear aside. She couldn't let the whispers and stories wrap around her mind like a noose. Stepping into the swirling snow, the vibrant life of Maplewood turned into a ghostly maze, the familiar becoming a hostile expanse of shadows. Caution gripped her as she called out, "Is anyone there?" The words were swallowed by the wind, leaving only silence that echoed back like a taunt. Then, she heard a laughter, high and grotesque, shattering the night air. It wasn't just her imagination. It felt alive, a sinister melody that intertwined with the weeds of her dread. She turned, scanning the frozen landscape, but the familiar seemed shrouded by darkness. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, tattered and ghostly, cloaked in a way that sent chills dancing down her spine. Mary's breath caught in her throat. The icy terror swelled. Her limbs felt trapped, as recognition dove into her very bones. This was no random stranger. This was a haunting presence she never expected to confront. As it stepped into the brittle glow of a flickering streetlight, she saw the truth engulfed in that face were echoes from her past, stories wrapped in the chilling legacy of the Winter Wraith. Her heart raced as the snow began to swirl faster around her, consumed by an overwhelming dread. Trapped in that moment, she stood at the brink, pain lancing through her thought, as she realized the darkness outside her home might be the terror that had invaded her life all along. Fighting to protect her children became clearer. Sometimes home isn't so safe after all. Would she summon the courage to face her fears? Or would the icy grasp of the Wraith pull her family into its vengeful void? Mary's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet seemed nailed to the frozen ground. The figure advanced slowly, cloaked in shadows, the chilling laughter echoing eerily. It was a sound that twisted her stomach, igniting memories buried deep within memories coated with a thick layer of snow and sorrow. "Mom!" Ethan's voice rang out from the darkened warmth of their house, pulling her gaze back to the door, the safety of their home seeming to fade like a distant dream. She blinked, gasping as the figure drew closer, the visage growing eerily familiar. Every instinct told her to flee, but she felt rooted to the spot, like prey caught in the gaze of a hungry predator. "Stay inside. Don't open the door." The words exploded from her, drowning in the growing unease that transformed her throat into a tight, cold vice. Yet, the creature before her, was it truly the Wraith? Or had the curse wrapped around her family taken on a form she once knew? The figure stopped, the laughter ceased, replaced by a haunting whisper, "Mary, come closer." The voice rolled over her like thick fog, familiar and foreign at the same time. It beckoned, and she could not shake the urge to move. The Wraith knew her name. What was that weight on her heart? "Mom, please!" Ethan's shout broke her trance. Fear clawed at her chest. The urgency in his voice was laced with terror. But Mary forced herself to take a step back, shaking her head as if to shatter the illusion. "I'm coming back. Stay away from the windows. You never listen." The voice taunted, deep and mocking. "You always wanted to know. And now here I am." Her breath came in labored gasps. The wind, now a howl, carried shards of ice that stung her skin. She turned her eyes back to the figure as it twisted, and for just a heartbeat, it morphed. The face transformed, shifting to that of her long-lost sister, Jenna, who had vanished years ago in a blizzard just like this one. "Help me, Mary. I'm trapped. You have to save me." "Jenna? No." The realization struck her like a winter storm. Jenna was dead, lost to the very blizzard that seemed to return now with purpose. The Wraith was using her sister's face, feeding on Mary's anguish to draw her in. The house loomed behind Mary, every darkened window reflecting the flickering light of the storm. Her children murmured inside, cursing the Wraith and its grasp on their mother, while the creature before her spun its twisted web of deceit. "Come with me. Together we can be free." Jenna's mouth moved, yet it was dread echoing in Mary's mind. The sky rumbled, and the wind picked up viciously, swaying Mary's resolve. "Get away from her." A voice sliced through the frigid air, the familiar tone of Mr. Henderson emanating from behind her door. "Mary, come back now." Moments dragged by, tension hanging like icicles. Could she trust her eyes? Was she losing her grip on reality? Panic surged in her veins. Then she heard the laughter again, right behind her, chilling her to the bone. "Why go back, Mary? They will never understand. But I will show you." In a split second, she faced the door where her children waited, safety just out of reach, as the laughter enveloped her, pulling her deeper into the shadows. Would she grasp the fleeting chance to escape, or would her quest for truth seal their fate forever? Mary's heart raced as the darkness loomed closer. In that chilling moment, she was faced with a choice, one that could change everything for better or worse. Just then, the power flickered and died, plunging the house into suffocating darkness. A cold silence fell, but not for long. Something outside began to move again, and the dread pressed against her like an unyielding weight. But one question lingered. Could she decipher the truth from the horrifying visage of her past before it was too late? The darkness engulfed her, a suffocating blanket that choked off the flickering light from within the house. Heart pounding, Mary could barely breathe. The silence punctuated only by the howling wind outside, whipping at the walls, threatening to tear the roof off. There was no time to think, only to feel, and the ice on her skin screamed that danger loomed close. "Ethan," she shouted, desperately hoping her sons could still hear her. Panic surged within as she grappled with the terror of the voice echoing in her thoughts. The shadows twisted, and in the midst of it all, she couldn't shake the idea that whatever was out there had no intentions of letting her escape. A sudden crash made her jump, the sound resounding from outside her door. It was like thunder, each bang shaking her to her very core. It didn't matter that she needed to hold on to logic. Her irrational mind clawed at her, imagining what could wait just beyond the door. That S when the laughter returned, reverberating through the icy night like a cruel symphony. "Do you hear them? They're afraid, Mary. Just like you." The Wraith's voice slithered through the air, wrapping around her thoughts, squeezing out her will. "Shut up," she yelled, a weak defiance lacing her tone. But deep down, she felt her resolve cracking. Memories flooded her mind. Jenna's laughter, the warmth of their childhood home, and the day it all turned gray. The Wraith fed on these memories, twisting them into a spire of dread. A flash of movement caught her eye, blurred figures in the swirling storm, clutching and grasping, and they were calling her name. "Mom! Help us!" It was Ethan. His voice drowned in the wind, but unmistakably his. Her heart ached, the tangle of emotion overwhelming. Then there was a moment, an agonizing pause, as if time ticked off in slow motion. The shadows danced, and for a breath, she thought she might see something beyond them. A glimmer or a glow that offered hope, but it faded like smoke in the chill air. Clenching her fists, she was pulled back to the reality of her tormentor. "Come with me," the voice urged, now mingled with memories of warmth, even as a chill peppered her skin. "Let me show you what you've lost, what could still be yours." Mary felt the pull, an unnatural gravity tugging at her heart. The thought of her past clawed at her sanity, promising her one last moment with Jenna, one last embrace that might heal the broken pieces. But it was a trap. She knew it was a siren song promising solace behind the veil of horror. "No!" she screamed, her resolve solidifying once more. She pivoted, determined to make it back to her boys. But before she could take a step, a cold hand grabbed her wrist. A jolt of ice shot through her. Her scream choked in her throat. She turned slowly, her breath suspended. It was not the wraith, but the silhouette of someone familiar. Eyes wide with a shadowy light, the figure loomed just beyond the edge of the darkness, and the voice shattered her. "Help me, Mary. You have to break the cycle." It was Jenna. Mary felt the breath leave her body as horror crashed around her like a breaking wave. The faces of her children, filled with fear and vulnerability, came back into focus. She was caught between them and the specter of her sister. "What do I do?" she whispered, fear freezing her in place. A storm surged within her, chaos, confusion, and terror building to a breaking point. Would the wraith continue to chip away at her sanity? Or would she confront the truth hiding behind the shadow of her past? And as she stood between two worlds, the ground rumbled beneath her. The awakening of something dangerous. What awaited her in that storm was a question laced in dread. Would the next choice unleash her family's fate or lead her down a darker path? Mary's pulse thundered in her ears, as Jenna's silhouette shimmered in and out of focus like a distant star in a stormy sky. Was this really her sister? The sister she had mourned, lost to tragedy? The resemblance was striking, yet the eyes bore an unsettling emptiness that quickened Mary's breath. "Mary, please, you're running out of time." Jenna's voice sliced through the icy air, tinged with desperation. Mary felt the chill seep deeper into her bones, a frozen dread washing over her. But where was Ethan? Where was the pleading voice that had led her here? Guilt churned in her stomach as images of her children, trembling in fear, flashed in her mind. Thick fog shrouded the doorway behind her. Felt ominous. "No!" she shouted, shaking off the grip of sorrow. The hallway behind her might lead to Ethan, to safety. "Look at me." Jenna's voice rose, echoing in the claustrophobic darkness. "I'm not here to hurt you. I can help you see." Mary's head spun. Was this the wraith's trap? The shadowy face of her sister flew towards her like a moth to flame, pulling her into an emotional whirlpool. Memories surged, baking cookies on rainy days, inside jokes of their youth, and tender moments now lost. The shadows around Mary flickered, casting grotesque shapes that mirrored her inner turmoil. "Stop!" Mary gasped, holding her hand out. "If there's a way to break the cycle, tell me how. I can show you what lies beyond that place where pain ceases." Jenna insisted, her voice softening, almost soothing. "You just have to trust me." The wraith kicked at her thoughts, twisting her heartstrings. It whispered of reunions and healing, of love that could mend the cracks of loss. Could these twisted memories be her salvation, or were they merely bait? And then came the piercing cries of her children, stronger now, a chorus of fear that shattered the lingering echoes of comfort. "Mom, find us, please." That was when the door rattled violently, like a raging animal wanting entry. Mary jerked her head back towards it, her instincts flaring. It felt like a sign, a reminder. Her children were out there, lost in darkness, while she wavered in indecision. "Come with me, Mary. We can end this." Jenna urged again, hope entwining with urgency. But the shadows behind her sister shifted, warping into ghastly forms that twisted her sister's features into something monstrous. Something wrong. A chilling wind swept through the room, extinguishing any warmth. Mary stumbled back, torn. She grabbed onto whatever fleeting semblance of clarity remained. I want to break this cycle, Jenna. But not like this. Another violent crash echoed outside, rattling the walls. A flash of light illuminated the hallway, revealing a fleeting glimpse of an endless darkness swirling just beyond. It took her breath away, and instinctively, she knew that beyond the door lay a path either to salvation or despair. What is out there? Mary asked between clenched teeth, her heart racing. Am I too late to save my boys? I can guide you, Jenna shouted, her voice drowning in the tempest outside. Just take my hand. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, and Mary felt the weight of her choice like a tidal wave about to crash. What would happen if she turned back now? What if that choice cost her sons their lives? Outside the door, the storm howled for her attention. With a sudden resolve, Mary took a step forward, balancing on the edge of hope and horror. No more, she declared, glancing between Jenna and the shuddering door. But the shadows flickered ominously around her, a resonance of something dark just beginning to awaken. The truth was clearer than ever, yet it wrapped around her like a noose. In the distance, the laughter of the wraith erupted, promising that the worst had yet to come. Will you trust what you see? Jenna's voice trembled now. Or will you fall into the abyss? With every heartbeat, Mary sensed the ground giving way beneath her. The choice loomed ever larger, as did the dark storm waiting to feast on her fear. What lay in wait behind that door was the final question hanging in the frigid air. Would the truth save her family, or would it shatter their lives forever? Mary's heart stuttered in her chest, each beat a frantic question. The shadows twisted around her, dark fingers curling as if urging her closer to the door, closer to the darkness beyond. What was lurking there? She felt trapped between the piercing desperation in Jenna's eyes and the relentless cries of her children. Trust me. The whisper slithered into her mind, warm and familiar. But it felt wrong. You can bring them back. You can end the pain. The deception coiled around her as tightly as the fog, each word from Jenna thickening the air, suffocating, tantalizing. Lightning flickered outside, illuminating the hallway one last time. Mary caught a glimpse of what might be on the other side, a swirling void darker than night, a maw that opened to devour hopes and dreams. Was this the end? Would she lose not just her children but also her sister once more? Suddenly, the storm raged louder, and the walls trembled. Was this the wraith's doing? What would happen if she ignored Jenna's call? The thought sent chills dancing down Mary's spine like icy fingers. The shadows behind Jenna moved with ominous grace, dancing closer, pulling her back toward the past. Stop, Mary said more firmly now, anchoring herself in the present. You're not real. You're not my sister. Jenna's face contorted with anger, shadows spilling from her mouth as she hissed. You will regret this choice. The chilling wind howled, a turbulent symphony of dread that reverberated through Mary. But I can't let you take over. The determination surged, bright as sunlight hitting snow. She moved back towards the door, the cries of her children spurring her on. It felt futile, a breaking point against the tide of darkness. Yet, she couldn't give in, not when her boys needed her. Mom! The sound pierced her heart, a desperate plea threaded with fear. It cracked through the veil of terror that had settled around her like a shroud. She could almost see their faces through the thick fog, eyes wide with need. Over and over, their pleas echoed in a haunting loop. The shadows screeched, clawing at her. An illusion. They are lost forever. No, Mary screamed, shaking her head. She tore her gaze away from Jenna, from the horrors lurking just beyond the door. With sudden resolve, she turned, ready to plunge into the hallway's gloom, ready to find her children. But a hand caught her arm, cold as death. Jenna's grip was nothing like the warmth she remembered. You can't escape me, Jenna shouted, her features melting into a grotesque mask of rage and despair. Mary pulled away, heart pounding against her ribs, adrenaline surging. Every instinct screamed for her to fight, but Jenna's face twisted into a snarl. In that moment, Mary saw the truth reflected in the shadows, the bitter reality that this wasn't her sister standing before her. This was a grotesque mimicry, a puppet meant to sabotage her escape. With a sudden burst of strength, Mary wrenched free and raced toward the door. The fog snarled around her feet, pulling, dragging as if it had a mind of its own. The demonic laughter echoed behind her, a chilling reminder of what she was up against. Bursting through the doorway, she was met by a cold, otherworldly wind that stung her skin and snagged her breath. The cries of her children grew louder, but it was different now. They felt close, yet she was still far from them, locked in a race against time. "Mom!" The sound was desperate, as if they were right behind her. She rushed forward, fear propelling her deeper into the unknown. Each step a battle against both the wraith and her memories. The shadows thrashed at her heels, a relentless pursuer, while the void opened wider, eager to consume her. "Don't listen to them," Jenna's voice hissed from behind, a slithering warning as she darted from the dark towards Mary, stretching her cold hand in an attempt to reclaim what was lost. But Mary refused to look back. She could feel the truth. The choice to save her children must mean overcoming whatever twisted nightmare had taken hold of this house. What would she discover in the unknown? A dark light flickered ahead, revealing a passageway leading deeper into the storm. With every pulse of her aching heart, dread blossomed alongside a burning urgency. Would she emerge to find Ethan? Or would she remain trapped in this eternal nightmare of shadows and sirens? There was only one way to know, and with that thought, Mary plunged into the heart of darkness, running towards the cry that would make or break her world. Mary stumbled into the passageway, her breath a mist of panic in the frigid air. The darkness clung to her, wrapping around her like tendrils of smoke. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of shadows were gathering to drag her back. She pressed forward, her heart racing, the echoes of her children's cries driving her deeper into the unknown. The passage wound like a serpent, tight and suffocating. She could hardly see beyond her hands, which she held out in front of her like a lifeline, ready to feel whatever awaited her. The walls were slick and clammy, pulsing like a heartbeat, and the air thickened with each forward step. Cold sweat trickled down her back, mingling with dread as Jenna's insidious voice taunted her in the recesses of her mind. "You'll never see them again," it echoed, mocking and hollow. "Why fight? Just give in." Mary shook her head violently. "No," she gasped, her voice barely rising above the storm raging outside. Just ahead, the flickering light beckoned, illuminating a vast chamber that opened up before her. It was like stepping into the mouth of a cavern, lined with jagged stones and shadows that twisted into grotesque shapes. Was this a dream? The kind where the walls watched, where the floor shifted underfoot. The flickering light swayed, its glow pulsating in the deep, like a heartbeat. "Mom!" The piercing cry shattered the eerie silence, splintering through her heart like ice. She rushed toward it, desperation clawing up her throat, but the room was vast. Echoes bounced off the walls, twisting her perception of direction. It was impossible to tell if the sound was getting closer or drifting farther away. "Timmy?" she called out, her voice hollow, swallowed by the shadows. But doubt wormed its way into her heart. What if the boys were just figments? What if it was all a trick of the wraith? Panic shot through her veins. As she turned to search the chamber, the shadows morphed against the walls, deepening, thickening. They crept toward her like hungry phantoms, eager to consume her. The cold wind howled in response, carrying whispers that danced around her. "Given it'll be easier, embrace the dark, get away," she screamed, swatting at the darkness like it was a tangible foe. It retreated momentarily, but she could feel its gaze, hungry and relentless. Then, from the far side of the chamber, she caught a flicker of movement. Formless shapes began to coalesce, slender, shadowy figures of her boys, eyes wide and filled with a mix of relief and fear. "Mom!" they cried, reaching out to her, hands trembling with urgency. Maria's heart soared with a primal joy, but just as quickly, dread pierced her again. What if they weren't real? What if she lunged, only for them to dissolve like mist? Stay away from them, a voice snarled behind her. Jenna lunged from the shadows, her features twisted in malice. They are mine now, just like you were. Mary felt her world teetering on the brink. Her children's cries sharpened, piercing through the weight of fear threatening to drown her. They were close enough that she could almost touch them. Yet the distance felt impossibly far with Jenna's darkness creeping closer. She clenched her hands into fists, desperate for clarity. I won't let you take them. They're not yours. The shadows surged forward, feeling almost sentient, wrapping around her limbs. In that moment of chaotic terror, Mary knew what she had to do. With a growl that erupted from the very core of her being, she charged toward her children, determination fueling every step. But could she reach them before the shadows consumed her? Would she seize them back, or would the Wraith's darkness twist everything into oblivion? The shadows loomed larger, Jenna's laughter an echoing mockery in her ears. As Mary raced forward, teeth clenched in fierce resolve, the light from her boys flickered dangerously, and the silence that followed loomed ominously, thickening like the shadows around her. What awaited her in that terrible moment? Would she reclaim her boys, or plunge further into the abyss? Mary surged forward, every breath an agonizing mixture of hope and dread. The flickering light from her children began to pulse like a dying star, illuminating their faces just enough to glance at their anguished expressions. But behind them, shadows thickened a living dark that seemed to pulse with malevolence. Mom, help us! They called out again, their voices almost drowned by the growing howl of the wind. And no, I'm coming, she screamed. Each syllable wrested from her throat like stones. The shadows twined around her ankles, cold tendrils that felt like icy fingers prickling her skin, slowing her down hungry, insatiable. Mary lunged. The chasm between her and her boys stretched impossibly further. The air crackled with Jenna's laughter, a distorted cacophony, weaving through the chamber like a predator stalking its prey. You can't save them, Mary. They're mine. They always have been. Just as she reached for their outstretched hands, dark silhouettes of Jenna's creation surged into her line of sight, horrors stitched together from nightmares. Slender bodies with soulless eyes, fabrications of pain and torment that reached for her, eager to pull her into their suffocating embrace. Her skin prickled with raw dread, and she stumbled, momentarily losing sight of her boys. Stop! She shouted. Leave them alone. Summoning every ounce of strength, Mary rallied against the oppressive darkness. The shadows recoiled slightly, shocked at her defiance. The flickering light from her children's faces sparked again, brighter now, almost cutting through the gloom. It offered a broken beacon of hope. Could it truly guide her? But the temperature dropped further, the chamber's breath hitching dangerously as Jenna closed the distance. You'll join them soon, Mary. The shadows undulated, encircling her as she fought with everything she had. Her legs felt leaden, and doubt clawed at her heart. Would she become a lost echo in this wretched realm, trapped forever amidst illusions? Mom, please. Timmy's voice sliced through the fog. Mary's heart twisted. She couldn't give in. Drawing from the depths of her maternal love, a fire ignited within her, illuminating her courage against the crushing swell of dread. Forget the darkness. I will not bow to you, she screamed into the dark. With that rallying cry, she broke free from their grasp, lunging forward with renewed determination. Resolute in her purpose, with frantic motions, Mary reached for her children. It felt like she was diving into a churning sea. The shadows clawed at her sides, scraping against her skin, but she pushed through with the fierce resolve of a lioness protecting her cubs. Together, now, she shouted as she closed the gap, her fingers finally brushing against their warm skin. Just then, Jenna's figure lunged at her from the darkness, a feral snarl twisting her features. No! In that instant, time stretched impossibly. Mary yanked her boys close, clutching them fiercely against her chest. The shifting shadows recoiled, amplifying Jenna's screams. Her laughter, now tinged with rage, was abruptly silenced by a bright light that erupted from their joined spirits, filling the cavern, illuminating every crevice, blinding the dark that sought to consume them. But even amidst the brilliance, an ominous chill lingered. The flickering light cast shadows of its own, whispering terrible promises, echoes of things unsaid and fates entwined. As the darkness roared in retaliation, Mary's heart pounded. "Is it over?" she gasped, pulling her boys close as the shadowy tendrils thrashed around them, desperately reaching for life, for warmth. "Mom, what is happening?" Timmy's voice trembled with fear, and in that harrowing moment, with Jenna off in the dark and the air thick with uncertainty, they stood on the brink of a reality that offered no guarantees. Would the light hold, or was it merely a false dawn before the storm? A thundering roar echoed through the chamber, shaking the very stones beneath their feet. Something was going to break. What price would they have to pay to escape the suffocating darkness? Waiting just beyond? The fractures in the air shimmered around them, as if the very fabric of the dark was tearing apart. Mary's heart raced, primal instincts kicking in, urging her forward. The brightness hummed with a strange energy, but deep inside her a voice whispered this was not a sanctuary. The shadows were shifting, writhing beneath the surface, waiting. "Mom, we need to go," shouted Danny, his small hands pulling at her. I know," she gasped, her own voice sounding alien in the chaos. The light flickered again, sparking like dying embers under a relentless storm. She had to act. A rumble echoed, louder this time, reverberating through the chamber. The walls seemed to breathe, swelling with the power of the dark. Mary could feel its icy breath wrapping around her, probing, taunting. She glanced back, the weight of Jenna's gaze prickling her skin even in the radiance. There was a hunger hidden behind those eyes, a cruelty that extended beyond this world. "Together, boys," Mary shouted, holding her children tightly, yet her mind raced. Was this their last chance? Would they be swallowed whole if they hesitated? With a sudden rush, the shadows surged forward like an angry tide. In the next heartbeat, they were upon her. Tentacles of darkness lashed out, wrapping around her limbs, clawing mercilessly. The pain brought a gasp to her lips, but she couldn't focus on it. The boys were her priority. "Hold on." She gritted her teeth and pulled, yanking her children closer against her. The warmth from their bodies felt like a lifeline, a feeling so real that it carved through her fear like a hot knife striking cold butter. "Mom!" Timmy shrieked as he was nearly jerked away by the wailing shadows. "No!" Mary screamed. A guttural roar born of sheer desperation erupted from her throat. Her voice drowned out the dark laughter echoing from all around. Fueled by maternal rage, she broke through the choking absence of hope. "Run!" she barked, meeting her children's terrified eyes. Together, they surged forward, battling the tendrils that lashed against them. Each step felt monumental, the pull of the darkness trying to drag them back, but the flickering light surged with renewed intensity, exposing the grotesque forms lurking within the shadows. Mary screamed again, "Don't look back!" It was a mantra now, the sound of her voice a promise to her children and herself. But the shadows screamed too. Jenna's voice, mocking and sweet, cut through the air like a knife. "You can't run from what's already inside you, Mary. They belong to me." A horrific vision flashed in Mary's mind. Her boys, twisted into those horrible, hollow-eyed creatures, adorned in dark rags, lost forever. It struck her like a thunderbolt, an icy grip of despair that threatened to freeze her heart. "Mom!" the boys cried, voices trembling. The light pulsed once more, fighting back against the dark, giving her strength. Determination surged through her veins. "Push forward. Just a little more." She urged them on, ignoring the howling wind and the cacophony of sounds that surrounded them. But they were losing ground. The shadows were strong and relentless. Just when hope threatened to slip through her fingers, she spotted an opening ahead, a passage barely illuminated, framed by swirling darkness. "Over there," Mary shouted, aiming for the narrow beam of light. But before they could reach it, the shadows lunged again, snarling and howling, a monstrous wave crashing against their feeble resolve. Just as they neared the threshold, a gigantic dark hand shot out, wrapping around Timmy's wrist. "No!" Mary's scream echoed, filled with terror. Panic surged in her chest. Time froze in that heartbeat. The light sputtered, almost extinguishing in that moment of sheer horror. What could she do? Would this darkness claim her son forever? As other dark tendrils grasped for them, she was faced with a horrifying thought. In the struggle for survival, what sacrifices would she be forced to make? And then she remembered the gleam in Timmy's eyes, the strength they shared. With a roar that shivered the air, Mary lunged into the fray, desperate to pull her son back from the brink of despair. But before she could reach him, a blinding flash of existence filled the chamber. Would it be enough to push the shadows back? Or would the impending darkness swallow them whole? In the chaos of the moment, Mary found herself questioning the very essence of her strength. What if the price for salvation demanded more than she was willing to pay? As darkness closed in, a truth began to seep through the cracks, untold and suffocating. What lay beyond the light was far more terrifying than what she could ever imagine. A sudden surge of heat enveloped Mary, the blinding light erupting like a violent solar storm, illuminating the chamber and banishing shadows momentarily. She barely registered its warmth before her instincts kicked in, and she thrust her body into the chaos, straining against the malevolent grip holding Timmy. "Let him go!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Timmy's terrified eyes glistened, bulging in disbelief. Mary felt her heart shatter at the thought of losing him. With a deep breath, she lunged forward, reaching for her son. But as she did, a wave of darkness rippled toward her, swallowing the light like a celestial ending, leaving her frozen in terror. The darkness stirred, malice brimming within it as shadows twisted around her limbs. An agonizing cold seeped into her bones, sapping her will like an insatiable drain. She felt herself wavering, the energy from the light slowly flickering. Everywhere she looked, faces horrid, contorted, dripping with sorrow merged from the shadows, crying out in silent screams. They were a warning, an echo of what her children could become. "Mom!" Danny's voice, high-pitched and trembling, pulled her back. "We have to go." Just as Danny's words slammed into her, she felt the pressure on her limbs quaking. A fleeting glimpse of Timmy's shadowy captor became more defined. A grotesque figure, its face arrayed with jagged lines and infinite hunger, loomed hungrily. "This one is mine," it hissed, the words curling around her ears like venomous smoke. The shadows shrieked in response, feeding off Mary's dread. She pushed against the darkness as thoughts swirled violently in her mind. If she didn't act now, would she lose not just Timmy but Danny too? The voices of lost souls roared in unison, chanting join us, fire ignited within her as desperation and defiance waged war. "Let my son go," she bellowed, shaking her head, forcing her body to fight. A strangled laugh erupted from the figure, a sound so horrifying it echoed in her skull that in that fraction of a second, she felt a surge power, love, purpose. "You don't own him." She tore forward, ripping free from the shadows that sought to drag her down. "Mom!" The boys shrieked, their voices a bomb against the crushing fear. She could almost sense their resolve merging with hers, fueling her drive to battle this entity. It was a race, a defiant head-on collision with despair. She reached for Timmy just as the darkness lunged again, sharp tendrils whipping toward her. The shadows howled and raged at her audacity as Mary grasped her son's wrist. "Now!" she screamed, tugging them both toward the flickering passage of light beyond. Danny followed instinctively, the three of them bound by an unyielding thread. But the darkness was not done. It lashed out, a final desperate grasp, as if the chamber itself were alive in its wrath. Tendrils entwined around Mary's limbs, dragging her back, pulling her into the depths of the void. Suddenly, she felt a pulse, a vibration that coursed through her. Igniting her senses, her heartbeat synchronized to the flickering light, resonating as if the universe itself was fighting back. "We can't stop now. Hold on tight." With sheer grit, she yanked forward, determined to breach the boundary between misery and hope. The shadows snarled, hissing their hatred, clawing against the walls of reality. And at that moment, the blinding light erupted into a dazzling explosion, blurring her vision, drowning the howling shadows in a surge of incandescent fury. The room trembled, rattled by the force of a destructive revelation. "Together," Mary shouted, feeling the warmth of her children pressing against her, her heart pounding in rhythm with their breaths as they drove toward the light. It expanded, enveloping them in its embrace. But just as they surged through the radiant barrier, a chilling whisper danced through the air. "You think you've escaped? This is only the beginning." With their world teetering on the precipice of both salvation and despair, Mary could only grip her sons tighter. What awaited them on the other side? Would they return to safety or into a more horrifying abyss? Fear surged as the light flickered beneath unseen weight, revealing a chilling reality ahead. They weren't the only ones looking to escape. What would they face next? The glimpse of something monstrous stirred just beyond the light, each breath heavy with an ominous promise. The blinding light enveloped them, holding hope and despair in a fragile balance. Mary's heart raced, each thud echoing the desperate urge to protect her boys. She felt their warmth close to her, anchoring her against the terrifying unknown. But even in this ethereal embrace, she could sense something lurking on the edges, a shadow poised to strike. The moment they broke through the barrier, they were thrown into a new realm, neither here nor there. The scenery shifted like a broken film reel, and the air around them pulsed as if alive, crackling with an energy that danced on her skin. Brightness quickly faded into luminescent gloom, drenching everything in a bluish haze. "Timmy, Danny," she called out, the boys at her side, their hands clutching her tightly. But the room felt different now, an unfamiliar place, with walls breathing in and out like a nightmarish creature waiting for a feast. It smelled of dampness and despair. But that was not the worst of it. The silence was like an echo of impending doom. "Mom, where are we?" Timmy's voice quivered, wide eyes searching the murky shadows. He was scared, and in turn, it sent waves of panic through Mary. "It'll be okay, guys," she said, her voice quaking, trying to instill courage while battling her own fear. They were together, and that was all she needed to focus on. In the distance, a low, rumbling sound echoed, a heartbeat of something dark, something grotesque, lurking just out of sight. Jenna's laughter clung to the air like a vile stench, promising they weren't free yet. They could already feel the oppressive force, ready to plunge them back into misery if given the chance. Suddenly, like a nightmare manifesting, shadows erupted around them, twisted figures, remnants of the past, haunting Mary's vision with hollow pools for eyes. They clawed toward her, mouths stretching in unnatural shapes, screaming without a sound, urging her to join them. For each one that materialized, her resolve threatened to crack. "No!" she roared with newfound defiance, gathering the remnants of her spirit while clutching her boys closer. "We're not afraid of you." The shadows paused, their eerie whispers turned into an almost respectful silence. The strength of her resolve was palpable, a beacon cutting through the darkness like a knife. Mary took a step forward, squeezing her children's hands. "We need to find a way out together." Tentatively, they moved deeper into that dimension, avoiding the creeping caress of the shadows. For every step forward, Mary felt the force behind them shift like a predator waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Mom, I see something." Danny pointed ahead, and Mary followed his gaze to a recurring shimmer. A light nestled between the looming shadows, flickering like a dying star. Pulsed gently, promising hope a way back home. They moved with purpose, driven by adrenaline, but shadows flared, hungry to reclaim them. "We're almost there," Mary shouted, pushing her legs harder, the tendrils inching perilously close. "You can't escape us," they screamed in unison, voices twisted in a cacophony of anguish. "Keep going," Mary cried, pulling her boys along, each footfall battering against uncertainty, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. With the light within reach, she felt their small bodies shaking from fear. She took a breath. Trust me. They tightened their grip. Every inch felt monumental. But just as they were close, right on the edge, the darkness surged, pushing back with a fury that shook the very ground. Together, Mary shouted again, their voices rising in a palpable crescendo against the shadows, fueling the light's pulse. The moment they reached the luminous area, it exploded around them, shattering the darkness. The figures faltered, shrieks distorting into howls before dissipating into tendrils of smoke that took flight. A brilliance enveloped them completely, a cocoon of safety, shielding the remnants of Jenna's cruelty, while spilling out across an expanse that felt impossibly warm as the light faded. They found themselves back in Maplewood, a land transformed, where the snow glistened like sugar, and the trees stood tall and mighty. The walls of the home felt inviting now, warm even amidst winter's grip. Mary glanced down at her boys. They were real, unharmed, and her heart swelled with relief. Ethan and Danny, blinking against the brightness, were back in their living room. The laughter of children echoed as they returned to themselves, and Mary felt tears of joy spill down her cheeks, ever grateful for this moment, this second chance. But even as she pulled them close, a flicker in the shadows of the corner caught her eye, a remnant of the chilling encounter still watching, a reminder of the darkness that lingered. What if it comes back? Ethan murmured, uncertainty lining his brow. Mary hugged them tighter, a fierce determination igniting within her. We faced it and we found our way through. We can survive anything as long as we have each other. The warmth of their home wrapped around them like a shield. But now Mary was aware she could never let her guard down against the darkness. While she couldn't erase the horrors of the past, she could ensure it would never trap her family again. In that moment, there was no final farewell. Only a vow, a promise to stay vigilant, to remain united against any lurking shadows. Let us make hot chocolate, she whispered, the mundane becoming a comforting sanctuary against the echoes of the past. And as they gathered their small, cozy kitchen, laughter began to fill the space, pushing away every lingering ghost, creating warmth that would last through the longest and coldest nights. Yet, as snow fell gently outside, Mary could still feel the weight behind her, the knowledge that darkness never truly dies. It waits, hungry and patient, for a moment of weakness. But they were ready now, a family united, ready to fight. If you found yourself on this journey, feeling every thrill and chill alongside Mary and her boys, you'll want to keep up with these stories. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that await. Smash that like button now to help our community grow, feeding the algorithm and ensuring even more chills and thrills in the future. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what comes next. This is the moment to show your support. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the thrills far and wide.